We talk quickly today about the 5 types of grain, varieties of grain, which comes in halakha all the time. So those 5 grains that the Torah refers to have a special set of rules of dinim in Jewish halakha. We should also, first of all, note that all those 5 species are basically grasses, a type of grass. In a way, no different than the grass you have on your lawn. They're all grasses. So is corn a grass, and so on and so forth. All those things are grass. However, those 5 varieties have special place in halakha because there's something unique about them. And the 5 grains are wheat, barley, oats, spelt, and rye. Rye is good because you make whiskey out of it. Corn is good also, you can make whiskey out of it. Barley is also good because you can make scotch out of whiskey out of it also. And there is a reason why I'm mentioning those things. The 5 species especially are a very important ingredient from the overall nutrition and menu of mankind. For thousands of years they made bread out of them. They make bread, bread became so important that has its own place set aside in priority when it comes to the Jewish meal. Bread take precedence over any other type of food. It comes first. When we make hamotzi lechem min haaretz, we exempt everything else that we need. We don't need a bracha because ikar mezono. When a person sits and eats a meal, most of it is on bread. Bread is the most important ingredient in our meal until today. When you look at and I'm not a nutritionist and I'm not a chemist, so I'm trying to do the best I can. When you look at the nutritional value of the 5 species, besides starch, which all of them have starch, there is something else which is very important, and it's a protein. Protein has a name, and it is called gluten. The famous gluten. Gluten intolerance means lack of ability to process and digest that protein that is in some of them. I won't say what. Now, gluten is important because those 5, supposedly 5, I don't want to say, okay, let's go to 5 types of grain. He's the one who is responsible for the process that we call in Hebrew chametz, leachmitz, to, what do you call it, ferment, or how do you call it, leachmitz?
Leaven?
Ferment, leaven. That interaction of becoming leaven, when you introduce water to it, is unique to only to those species. That's what differentiates between other types of grass, which we call them gidulei sadeh, and legumes. The 5 species also differentiate a little different, that after you, especially back then, after you harvest them, you put them together in a bundle, and you make a bundle of them. That's called digun. It's bundling it up together after the harvesting. In the Tanakh, in the Bible, in many places, in the Chumash, in the Tanakh, we have a representation of those 5 species in the 7 species that Eretz Israel was blessed by. and by using the chita and seorah. Chita and seorah were the ones, and there is a reason also why chita is preferred to seorah, why chita, wheat, comes first. As the pasuk says in Sefer Dvarim, Eretz chita v'seorah v'gefen v'te'ena v'rimon, Eretz zait, shemen v'davash, a land of wheat, barley, gefen is grapes or wine, grapes, right? Te'ena, figs, rimon, pomegranate, eretz zait, shemen, of olives that produce oil, the good olives, v'dvash, honey, which refers to not honey that comes from bees, but honey that comes from dates, and also known in those lands as silan. Silan is the name of that honey that comes from that. In the 28th chapter of Isaiah, right, where he describes the work of the farmer, he also mentions those 5 species, and he goes, "Halo im shiva panea ve'fitz katzach v'chamun izrok." Katzach, you know what katzach is? You know what katzach is? Katzach is nagila seeds. It's those onion seeds in which they put in Indian food and Mediterranean food, sometimes on top of cookies and so on and so forth. It's nagila seed or katzach. Kamun is cumin. Vesam, that he took to the side, and he put chita, sora, useora, nisman, vekusemet gvulto, and he mentioned those 5 things like this. The special dinim that are referred to the 5 species of grain are mentioned a lot in what we call Masechet Chala, and they include many dinim regarding to the bread which we make out of those 5 species before and after. Of course, the famous bracha Motzi Lechem Min Haaretz and Birkat Hamazon right after that, and eating. And we know that if we're going to eat, for example, less than a shiur of kazait, which is, let's call it 27 grams, which is 1 ounce, bichdei achilat hapras, which is anywhere between 3 to 7 minutes, somewhere in between that, we make a bracha achona, halachot, like for example, if you made a dough from those 5 species, you're obligated in being mafrish chala. Therefore, if I made bread, complete, now Thanksgiving is around the corner, so people make what do you call it, cornbread. If it's only made out of corn flour, you don't need to take challah. You made a lot of it, you don't need to. If you make bread from any other of the 5 species, you have to do afrashat challah. It's of course a mitzvah to eat matzah in Pesach, which is made out of those 5 species. I can make matzah out of rice, but I'm not going to be yotzei this mitzvah, and we'll get further down on that. You're not allowed to eat chametz in Pesach. What's chametz? Anything that was made out of those 5 species with water, and it became chametz, leaven, you can eat on Pesach. And you're not allowed to have at home anything that was made out of it. For example, pasta. Pasta was made, you need to sell it or to get rid of it, etc., etc., etc. Let's get into it now. You're not allowed to eat chadash from those chameshet minim. Any grains that grew, right, and there was harvest, we call chadash. You can't do it. If you planted twice a year and you harvested the second time again, and it's a problem. You have to eat yashan. But we refer to kemach yashan, that applies only to the five grains. Doesn't apply to anything else. There's no din of chadash regarding corn. Now, if we, how are you? If we talk about, let me ask you a question, guys. What time do you guys need to leave? Okay, so we're gonna make one after the other.
You say we're going to a second?
No, not now. Later.
Okay.
Later.
Thanks.
So, where you going?
Yeah, I'll talk to you for a second.
So call me later. Okay. So now we're talking about the identification of those 5 species. The wheat and barley, or wheat and shibolet shual, what we call shibolet shual, which is oats, is considered to be one species in regarding kilaim. Kilaim means the prohibition of planting them together. And if it's all within one species, you can plant them together because it's one thing. For example, I can have 2 different types of radishes growing in the same box. One is a small radish, one is a long radish, as long as this radish is okay. But I'm not supposed to plant a variety of things together. Okay? Kusmin. Kusmin is what? No. Spelt. Kusmin is spelt. Chiffon is rye. Also considered to be one species in regarding that. Kilaim. Now, there is quite of a dispute, and that's really what I'm doing this. There's really quite of a dispute among researchers if what we call today kusmin and shibolet, shual, which is oats, if they are the same species in which they refer to in the time of the Mishnah. Very well known. We have the book here somewhere. I don't know where it is. I think it's over there. We have the book of Yehuda Felix. He is a big researcher that dealt in categorizing and identifying all the species of a chayva, tzomeach, anything that is a living entity or anything that grows and mentioned in the Torah, in the Mishnah, and so on and so forth. He identified them all. He identified the shibolet shual, what we call oats, with a different type of barley. There are different types of barley. With a different type of barley, and he claimed that it is impossible for what we call oats, what we call today oats, that is the one that we use for making oatmeals and all kind of breakfast and so on and so forth. He said it is impossible that it's one of the 5 grains. Why? Because it does not have gluten in it. It doesn't have gluten. And he claims, and that was not known was not known to the Chachamim of the time of the Mishnah and the Talmud, because it simply didn't grow in that area at the time. According to his own testimony of Professor Felix, Yehuda Felix, he said that after he revealed that, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach alav Shalom used to make birkat shehakol on oats, and he did not make mezonot for a period of about 2 years. He made shehakol on it until came Rav Eliashiv to him and really said to him, he said, how can you do that? That's the minhag of Israel, the Jewish minhag for hundreds of years to do so. How come you change to say mezonot? How come you change it? To change the minhag Israel, because one researcher to say that. I know that Rav Abadi, I was heard from someone who was close to him, Rav Abadi goes along with that. Rav Abadi from Israel goes along with that opinion. There's another researcher, his name is Professor Zohar Amar. He published a big research on the 5 species of grain, and he tried to put together all the opinions that we have in terms of what we call the researchers with the scientific researchers, with the biblical researchers and our sources. And he basically claims that it's possible that they might have grown what we call shibolet shual and chiffon. Chiffon is rye in limited quantities up north of Israel in the upper Galilee and Golan area. It's possible that they grew, but it's not for sure. The oats, what we call in Judaism, is considered to be one, as we said, one of the species, but according to Yehuda, Felix is not. And what shibolet shual is not, that what we call oats is not the species, right? That's the strongest opinion. According to him, Rav Yosef Efrati claims that in an experiment that was conducted on his behalf by Dr. Moshe Zaks, our oats actually did become leaven, and therefore we need to stick to what we know from Chazal, of that Masorah that we have, that it's the oats that we have are actually shibolet shual. It's called shibolet shual, by the way, for many reasons. Some people say it's called shibolet oats, shibolet shual, because it resembles the ears of the fox, because it kind of splits, the grain splits. According to some researchers, the way it grows is an indication that it's not one of the species. Another reason it's called shibolet shual because foxes like to rub themselves on it for whatever reason, and so on and so forth, but we don't really know. In regards to kilayim, in Masechet Kilayim, the first Mishnah, it says, Mutar la'arev shibolet shual ve'seora yachad. You're allowed to mix shibolet shual, and you see that you're allowed to do so. Now, what's so important about gluten? What's important about gluten? The gluten is as we said, is the protein that you can find in different grains, as we say, chita, seora, shipon, and so on and so forth, is that the uniqueness is that it does not melt. Hey guys, that it does not break down when you introduce water to it, which gives it the ability to actually create bread, and which is the main. Gluten is the main protein in wheat. That's why wheat comes first. It's about 90%. Gluten is about 90% of the overall protein that you can find in wheat. So you see, if we go like this, then it goes by the order. So you see the people that have problems with gluten intolerance will be able to eat spelt or rye bread because there's less gluten in it, where barley and oats they're not going to be able to eat. So, just 1 second. Now, the gluten also, what we call, allows us to stick all the ingredients of the bread together and turn them into dough while we knead them. The kneading is very important. Kneading is very important for the process of making bread because it helps you through the gluten. Gluten is like the glue that puts all these ingredients together to make bread. I don't know if you could do so with oats. If you just take oat themselves with water, I'm not sure. It's something we can try. You can take oat flour and put it with water and see how easy it is to actually knead it and make it into a dough. Regular flour is no problem. Now, if you look at it, when you actually knead it, what happens to the gluten? It evolves and develops, and there are different chemical connections that are being created, and you're creating, in a way, a three-dimensional structure which is very cramped, like a fibrous net, right, of very fine fibers that are very elastic, and the ability to become elastic, to change all the time, depends also on the amount of gluten there is in the flour, right? If you have gluten and gliadin, which whatever that is, with enzymes, that actually makes the bread or the wheat on a higher quality. the more gluten, the more elastic the bread will be, the higher level of dough you were able to make. That description of the gluten structure that we create by kneading is really to hold within itself the gas that is created by the enzymes and the yeast that it's breaking down, and that's how the dough rises. How the dough rises, there is gas. We're creating a chemical reaction. We break it down, almost like a Japanese sword, that by folding it, you're creating layers upon layers upon layers of metal, of structure of layers of metal on it, and that makes it hard. By kneading it, we are mixing up all the ingredients together. We're creating this fibrous structure. It's basically like, look at this like a big net like this. Now the enzymes start to work. Water, sugar, yeast, that creates gas. And the dough, that net holds the gas and it rises up. Now you understand what happens to you in your stomach when you eat wheat or barley. If you eat barley, right, you're putting your cholent in your barley, you basically could operate a whole wind farm and create electricity because of all the gas that is creating in your stomach because of the gluten. So people that have problem with gluten intolerance, celiac, and so on and so forth, have a problem digesting and breaking down that protein. The same thing as people are lactose intolerant. Lactose is the sugar that they cannot break in their intestines. People who cannot have celiac, actually people who don't have the enzyme or proper, that's a discharge way to break down that protein that creates an unbelievable gas, and it expands into your stomach, and you have a stomachache and basically cannot move. So when the dough rises, that's why it rises, because the gas in it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And what do? Then you pound the dough back, you let all the air out, and you leave it again. And then there is heat, right? Because you won't be able to raise dough when it's cold. You need to create heat, and then air comes down again. And if you cut the bread, right? After you made the dough and you cut the bread, what do you see inside? Those little holes. That is very good to actually dip inside. It operates like you're creating a sponge. Because now that you cooked, right? So the air is out, but just the holes are there. So now that's why you dip things, because the little holes actually hold the liquid, and then you're able to eat it. That's why it tastes so delicious. So, of course, the amount of gluten will be determined by your environment, where it grows, and so on and so forth. But to most opinion, oats don't have it. So what should we do? Well, the following. I will tell you what I do. Since it's a Minhag Yisrael, I'm not here to come and to revolutionize and so on and so forth, right? So, if I eat, I'll say mezonot or not, because anyway, it won't be such a big difference in terms of why do we say mezonot on rice? Now it's also, rice is also part of, by the way, rice is also a type of grass. But rice doesn't have gluten in it, the way we have it. It has starch. But rice, we say mezonot because it's masbia. So if you eat an oatmeal, breakfast, you can say mezonot, it's masbia, and also because that's what most of the Jews do. However, there's a tzad chumrah to that. The tzad chumrah will be in, let's say, chametzim, because even if you make oat bread, bread that is made with oats, you will have to put flour in it. There is no bread that you make solely out of just using oat flour. You have to put wheat flour inside as well, and that would make it into bread. That will take it over. However, for Pesach, I would not eat oat matzah. If I need to do hamotzi and mitzvat matzah, I would not do it on oat matzah just because of those opinions. So here we cover up a little bit of halacha, we covered up a little bit of gluten intolerance, and now you better might have a better understanding why people are gluten-free and so on and so forth. Gluten by itself, by the way, is not bad. It's just bad for those who can digest it. Gluten is good. It's a protein. It's good. And that's what makes bread so yummy and so good. And now you understand why the difference between white bread and whole wheat bread. Whole wheat bread is less accessibility for the protein to break down, and on and on and on. So that's basically what it is. So next time you eat challah, and you see the little holes in the challah, and the challah is very yummy and chewy, and they're probably using high gluten flour inside. So when you think about this, understand what we were saying, and when you eat oatmeal, think about it this way. Hopefully Mashiach will come pretty soon and will clarify to us which one is really oats. Have a great day.